meeting to order. Perhaps I would ask everybody to turn off their telephones. And I'd like to ask our good friend Joel Longfield to lead us in our national anthem. Joel?
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you once again, Joel. We very much appreciate it, especially coming out in this rather rainy weather.
What can I say? Thanks. Thanks for asking me.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Are there any addendum items tonight, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Thank you. I would like a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Main, second by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none, move on to adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole. That's minutes number 18-15, held on July 27th, 2015. Do I have a motion to adopt? Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Bodner. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to the items for possible discussion tonight. Are there items that anyone would like to pull this evening that require separate discussion? Councillor Bodner.
Item 3, we have to appoint someone for that committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bodner. Any others? There be none. Councillor Bodner, could you just read the heading for the item number 3?
Community and corporate services.
Okay. Perhaps we should approve those items not requiring separate discussion. All those in favor? Was that moved by Councillor Butter, seconded by Councillor Doucette? All those in favor? Carried. Are there any presentations this evening? Nope, thank you. Any delegations this evening? No delegations? Thank you. Mayor's report. I have a number of items I'd like to chat about. First of all is Canal Days. It was a very successful weekend. Our special events team did an excellent job. That's Alana Kane, Gina Murdoch, Jennifer Bowman, and Michelle Cuthbert, Brian Thiel, and under the direction of Mr. Hakim, did a very excellent work. And they work very hard throughout the year. This doesn't happen overnight. They meet throughout the year to organize the event. They are joined by the Canal Days Volunteer Committee, who also meet on a monthly basis throughout the year as well. There are hundreds of volunteers join our city staff and Canal Days Committee during the weekend of the event. All of this is mixed with the generosity of our financial sponsors to make Canal Days a premier event, not only within the region, but also within the province. It's just exemplary. We're very pleased with what happened this year. The weather cooperated with a little bit of threatening here and there, but it was a good event. CAO Louis and I continue to visit our local industry to familiarize ourselves with the operations and offer assistance from our municipal perspective. We recently had a very positive visits with Thurston Machine and with the Valet. Valet will be having their shutdown in the month of August, and at which time sometimes the noises of the maintenance crew exceed that of the operations of the plant, and so if ratepayers hear a little different noises this August, please, it's only for roughly a 2-week period, and please bear with us. City staff are continuing to meet on the frozen water services issue, with a report to be sent to council in early October. Both Valet and the city will continue to press the Ministry of Environment to sign off on the community risk assessment discussions. After 15 years, that's a long time, we wish to put this situation behind us as this cloud continues to be needlessly hanging over our community. On a lighter note, the final Showboat Festival Theater play will run at the Roselawn Theater from the 19th to the 23rd. This play is the same time next year, which is one of a very classic comedy. Also, Councillor Kenny and Maine and myself joined Mary Arts at the Port Colborne Bocce Club's annual fundraiser to raise funds for our Special Olympians. They turned out in full force, but Councillors Maine and Kenny I concluded that we need a little more practice, and in fact we will be doing that, aren't we, Councillor Maine? Anyway, that's the end of my remarks. Are there any councillors' items that any councillor wishes to bring forward? Councillor Desmarais and Councillor Maine. Councillor Desmarais, would you go first, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I would like to ask staff about the intersection at Chippewa and Highway 3 and what we're going to do about traffic kind of blocking around there and making the turns difficult and making it very dangerous for pedestrians. One, I'm going to kind of group this all together because it has all to do with the one area. The stop sign at Chippewa and Berkeley. There's this I believe it's 3 stop signs. It's the way the streets converge there. That is still a problem. I did bring a report forward 2 years ago, I believe it was, or a year and a half ago, from one of our community members who did quite a bit of work on that intersection, compared it to provincial standards and that sort of thing, did the measuring, and found out that the intersection does not comply with what it should, what the regulations are, and wanting to have that reconfigured or take the stop signs out entirely. I don't know what staff decided on that, but I need to find that out. The other thing is some form of crossing between Chippewa Road again and Highway 140 along Highway 3. It's very dangerous. People are running across the road, kids in particular, to get to the park, the Valet Center, Tim Hortons, all of the things that they want to get to. There's no real crossing in between those intersections, and it is very dangerous. There's not even proper sidewalks. The crossings that are there also need attention. I did bring these things forward, but I've done this a few times now, and I would like us to get to a place where we're actually doing something about it. So if I could get some information back, maybe, I don't know if you understand, Chris, what's happening with this yet, or if anything is happening, I would like to know that.
Mr. Lee, could you respond to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Desmarais. I will speak with staff and see where the situation is on each of those. Just for clarification, though, you said Chippewa and Highway 3? Or did you mean Berkeley and Highway 3?
No, I believe
For
it's
the
Chippewa.
Valet,
It's
for
right.
the Valet Center, I mean.
Chippewa and Highway 3, what I meant about that was the turning off of Highway 3 onto Chippewa, right by the bridge, okay, right next to Welland Street. That's the one I meant by that. Okay, and the other, Chippewa and Berkeley, was about the stop sign. And the entire area is about crossing safely.
Yeah, that's been a concern of Councillor Doucette's as well. So we'll look forward to receiving that information. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Feels good to be back and sort of wet, but feels good to be back. Just an indication of that, we had discussed 2 or 3 years ago about creating some kind of crossing so that the kids, there is no park on the north side of Main Street. The only real park they can use is Chestnut. They've got to cross Highway 3. And I remember 3 or 4 years ago, we made a big stink out of this and we were told something was going to be done. Well, we're still waiting. We still have little kids that are trying to cross to get to the park. Now they also will need to cross to get to Valet. Now there are seniors that would like to get across who are having trouble getting across. I'm getting reports of that. So something has to be done. I don't care what it is. And whatever it is, we've got to make sure it's legal. The other issue we have here is that Highway 3 happens to be a regional road. That's the other issue we're running into. So I'm not convinced that the whole delaying tactic is staff, our staff, okay? But I am concerned about the fact that we have no way of getting people to cross from the north side of Main Street to the south side of Main Street. And that's critical.
I don't believe it's a delaying tactic, Mr. Doucette,
Maybe it's the wrong
but
word.
certainly has been unreasonably long.
Yes.
You have another comment, Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Doucette. He's absolutely correct in that it's a regional road, and that creates a bureaucratic knot, if you would, for lack of a better term. It's not that it's an impossibility, but the two staffs will have to work together, us to bring the city's needs to the forefront, and then the region to realize those needs.
Something needs to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Maine?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, through you to Mr. Hakeem, there was lots of emails last week going back and forth about the condition of Nickel Beach. I went and had a look for myself shortly after I received the first email. It didn't look as bad as what the first email said, whether there was a blitz to clean it up or not. But do you have any input how that's coming along?
Mr. Hakeem?
Through your worship, to Councillor Maine. Well, since we've received the new ATV unit, it's certainly helped move some of the debris more quickly, obviously, because they're not carrying the bags any length. And we've stepped up sort of more of a recurring schedule with the staff that are there. There's 2 or 3 working at any one time, so we're trying to spread out their abilities to get on the beach and on an hourly, regular, routine basis, get to the washroom, get to the beach, get to the areas where debris tends to accumulate. Aside from that, it's just a matter of just making sure that they follow up a regularly scheduled procedure to pick up debris and move any garbage, and work with park staff to try and get that garbage removed when we accumulate it.
Mr. Maine?
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. Well, one more question for you. Is there a designated foreman at the beach? Because I know exactly what it's like when someone has to work under someone else and doesn't seem any direction. There's nothing gets done. Is there a designated foreman for that area?
The staff person in charge of Nickel Beach right now is Elena Kane, and she has 4 students right now currently working, and 1 person is more senior than the other 3, having been there for the past, I think, 3, maybe 4 years. So he has a little bit more of a lead, but he coordinates his efforts with park staff when he can. And there was some training in regard to using some of the equipment by park staff, as I understand. So he has a little bit more experience, and I wouldn't call him a foreman. He's still a student, has some a little bit more experience than the others. But in fairness to them, I mean, they are students, and there's still a recurring supervision that's required.
Thank you very much. My next concern, my phone and my email account has been going quite steady over the dust situation. And I want to compliment staff for their quick response when I've asked a question, and it's been very good. But my main concern is when something like this happens, it seems to drag on.
You're talking about the Westwood Extension subdivision?
The Westwood, yeah, extension. It seems to drag on, and I know we have some people who live out there who are not used to the dust and used to the accumulation. And in all fairness, if I lived there, I would probably be really squawking about it as well. I think we have to have something in place where the ratepayer can get a quicker response. And it might be the ratepayer's fault for not going through the direct channels or whatever. But I think something has to be done to get a better outcome. Now, I talked to Mr. Schultz on the phone tonight before I came here for about a half an hour, and he assured me that things are going to be different. And I assured him that I would be watching to make sure they were different. But he seemed to be quite concerned as well. And the other issue is the ultimate bylaw enforcement officer might have saved our day for a couple of days, so I want to thank him as well. Thank you.
Mr. Lee, do you have a comment on Mr. Main's inquiries?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Main. He's correct. There's a number of staff that have been involved in the equation. Actually, yourself and I had discussions earlier this morning on this specific topic as well. I know that the Director of Planning has had discussions with the developer, with email conversations and the like, and also the bylaw enforcement has been brought into the forefront of this as well. So we're doing everything we can within our so-called powers to be.
Thank you. Mr. Ekman, you have anything further to add?
Mr. Mayor, as what Mr. Lee said, yes, I have talked to Mr. Schultz, and he's assured me as well that he's going to take care of the matter, and I have confidence in him that he will.
Thank you. Any other comments or inquiries? Mr. Elliott? No, on another issue?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess through you to Chris. I had a lady email me about access to the skate park across Mellenby. There's the one culvert with the rocks. Basically, it's a little bridge, and I know it's posted no parking along there. She had an issue. Somebody had parked and completely blocked off that little bridge area. She couldn't get her buggy and her kids anywhere because that ditch runs basically along the whole length of the street. Is there any way, I don't even know if we can or not, is there any way we can make that access across there maybe a little bit wider, just in case somebody does do that? Because it's basically the length of a car. I don't know what the cost of that would be, but obviously somebody parked there because the access was easy and then blocked it, and she said they wouldn't move the car for her. She couldn't get across. So I don't know if anybody else is, yeah, it's no parking, so you gotta complain, but I don't know how quickly you'll get a response to that. So I don't know if there's anything we could do to rectify that situation at all.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott. Actually, staff made that laneway narrow so the cars wouldn't pull in and park on it. It's strictly there for access for the recycling bin and for pedestrians. So we had to give the waste collectors an access to the bin. They didn't want to jump the ditch any more than anybody else does. And that being said, we made it as narrow as possible, but still, it's being abused.
So could I just throw that out maybe to our bylaw officer, if she could maybe suggest to the parking guys, maybe just take a cruise by there every now and then. You know what, I looked at it and I thought, obviously it's access for the recycle bins because they're right there. And then I thought, you know what, somebody's pulled over because it gives you a little bit more room to pull off the road and let your passengers out and do whatever you want to do, right? Because everybody's parking across the street. So if we could just kind of maybe keep an eye on that and just make sure nothing happens. And I know it's posted all the way down, no parking, so and just keep an eye on it.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hakeem. Harry, I just wanted to add to what Councillor Main said. Are we raking the beach yet? Have we started doing that? Because that was a big complaint we had. The washrooms, for me, that should be, as I talked to you about it, there should be a sign in there. They initial the time they went in and they put their initial beside it. That way you know they went in and actually checked and cleaned. And then the next person that goes an hour later, like you said, an hour, it's the same thing. You see that in all kinds of washrooms and restaurants and different things, you see that. And it should be the same for us. There's no reason at all not to have a clean washroom, in my opinion. Not with, you have 4 students down there, you said? There's no reason in the world they should not be able to clean washrooms, so. But the main thing too was the raking. Are we raking the beach like we've always done in the past? Because that was a big complaint. We've always raked the beach.
Through your worship, Councillor Kenny, 2 points. The checklist for the washroom, it's something we just instituted at the marina, so we're doing the same thing at this facility too. So that's not, that's addressed. The grooming of the beach is limited due to some environmental concerns with the Fowler's Toads, and we can only be on there so many times. I know they've had the grader out a few times, but we do have a beach rake, and park staff and the beach staff, particularly the more experienced individual, has been trained on the use of the equipment, and it does go out. How often it goes out, I don't know, but I can certainly inquire. But it should be raked on some sort of recurring schedule, and we're trying to coordinate that with the park staff who operate most of the equipment for us.
Just a matter of interest, Mr. Hakeem, when we did meet with the manager of valet last week, he did comment on the status of the washrooms and the cleanliness, and we want to keep our landlord happy. There's no question about that. So just a further reason to make sure the workers, I don't want to refer to them as students, they're equal and should be attending to that. Okay. Anything else? Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up to B's question and Harry, with the toad situation, does that prevent us from doing it on a daily basis, raking? The sand part, and I'm not talking about taking out the seaweed and everything like that, but I'm talking to run a tractor up and down with like an old piece of fence or a rake or something like that. Does that prevent us from doing that on a daily or 2 or 3 times a week basis?
And through your worship to Councillor Elliott, there are some limitations. What they are exactly, with all due respect, I'm going to find out, because there are some limitations with the Fowler Toads, particularly through a seasonal application where we can have certain equipment on the beach. I know the heavy grader has limitations, but the actual rake, the beach rake itself, and the tractor that pulls it along, I'm not certain 100%, but I'll certainly inquire with the ministry to find out exactly what the limitations are. But heavy equipment definitely has limitations from what I understand.
Okay, thanks, Harry. Could you, just real quick, could you find that out as soon as possible and let us know via email if you can, so that we know what's going on? I mean, that should be, I'm thinking almost a daily basis, if not at least 3 times a week. You should maintain it, and I'm not talking about the heavy grader, but you should be able to run equipment up and down there and kind of smooth it back out and rake it up more often.
Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The toads are in the dunes. And that's
Okay.
where they mate, and it's mostly in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing to do with the beach itself, which needs the raking, not the grader. I talked to a grader operator, and he said it's useless for him to go out with the grader, and that was from his mouth only, and he's the one that operates it. So let's get it raked up and keep the people that use that beach on a daily basis happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just from what I know about the Fowler Toad and the restrictions that might apply to the beach area, you wouldn't have any restrictions on the beach itself. The restrictions should just go to the base of the hill, because the toad is up in the hill area, and I know that you're not allowed to disturb that area at all. So I think there's huge restrictions there, but on the beach itself, I don't believe there are any, but I'm certain you'll find out.
Through your worship to Councillor Demery, I'll get an answer from the M&R, and I'll make sure that everybody's aware as to what the details are, and then we'll address the business of getting the rake on the beach more often and working with the park staff as much as possible. We'll see if we can schedule something more frequently. So I'll address those issues tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. There being nothing further, then move on to item number 14, consideration of the items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Bott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In keeping with our new policy, apparently we're just reading the top
That's
part
correct.
of it. Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division, report number 2015-149. Subject, City of Port Colborne Arts and Culture Master Plan, award of proposal.
Now, the issue really is that they have requested a representative from council. And I'm looking for a volunteer to sit on this committee. Do we have someone who wishes to sit? Councillor Wagner.
Mr. Mayor, I would consider that if we had another person that could assist if I could not attend the meetings. And I'm
Councillor
not
Desmarais?
kind of looking at Angie, but you know. I think
Councillor
between the
Wagner, you
two of
agree?
us, we could make this work, Mr. Mayor.
You would be our lead, and then Councillor Desmarais would assist when and if required. Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll move to appoint Ron Bodner and Angie as the backup for the cultural committee.
Okay. Moved and seconded that Councillor Bodner would be the lead representative of council on this committee, and Councillor Desmarais would be the, I wouldn't say fallback, the alternate. Everybody understand the unanimous motion? Seconder was Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now I wonder whether we have to have a separate to move on their recommendation. We just move for the appointment. All right, yes. Okay, vote on the main motion now. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Doucette. Item number 3, as stipulated there. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. There are no other items for consideration. Are there any notices of motion this evening? There being none, I would call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. Comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. At this time, I'd like to move, the meeting is adjourned. At this point, I'd like to move on to the regular meeting of council, meeting number 24-15, and this is following the committee of the whole. We call that to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are none this evening.
Thank you. I have a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Dance, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? There being none, call for the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of council. It's council meeting number 23-15, held on July 27th, 2015. I have a motion to adopt those minutes. Moved by Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. Any comments or questions? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Now perhaps a determination of items requiring separate discussion. Perhaps number 3 again, Mr. Bodner? Not required. Okay, we're good. And approval of items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Bodner. Any comments, questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. There are no proclamations this evening. We have the minutes of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum of June 16th, 2015. Could I call for a motion to accept these minutes? Moved by Councillor Danch, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Consideration of bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 6274-115 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 89-2000 being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on city roads, that being Sugarloaf Street. Bylaw 6275-10115 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 89-2000 being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on city roads, that being King Street. Bylaw 6276-10215 being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Millier Dickinson Blaise, Inc. regarding the development of an arts and culture master plan. And finally, bylaw 6277-10315 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of August 10th, 2015.
Call for a question to accept those bylaws. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Butters. Any comments or questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session. And the motion would be that council do now proceed in closed session in order to address the following matters. Minutes of the closed session, portions of July 13th, 2015, and July 27th, 2015 regular council meetings, and Department of Planning and Development Report 2015-144 regarding the potential acquisition of land by the city pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Call for the question. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. Moved by Councillor Butters. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Doucette. All those in favor? Carried. We will now move into closed session.